Stephen Jackson had worked his entire life. He had recently retired from his job in IT for a company called Caliber Home Loans. He had looked forward to retirement and the freedom that it would bring. He lived and worked in the city of Tucson, Arizona, but had been raised in Michigan. Like so many in Arizona, Stephen and his partner were drawn to the countryside, the wilderness of Groom Creek in Arizona's Yavapai County. They spent the summers amongst nature. Stephen was always on the go. He often said that he had never lived in a finished home. He was always adding to his house and that of his family's. He was always building. It was something that he really enjoyed doing. A few years before his retirement, Stephen had bought a plot of land in Groom Creek. His plan was to build a home there, a place for him and his partner of 15 years, Annie Cook, to retire to. He began the building work himself, traveling to the plot during weekends when he would work dawn till dusk on the project. It was a wooden cabin set in beautiful surroundings. During the time he took to build the cabin, he came to know the locals. It was a small, close-knit community, each resident drawn to the outdoors lifestyle and all the adventure and peace that it brings. Songs from the birds filled the air. The gentle breeze rustled through the trees. The sights and sounds of nature, a feast for the senses. Stephen had already finished the garage and was working on the rest of the house. Sometimes he would stay for up to a month or more building it, spending much of the summer there. He planned to install solar panels and a water collection system. He wanted to live off the land as much as he could, the simple life. Soon the cabin would be ready for him to stay in whilst he finished the build from the inside. But for now, he drove up in his pickup truck and slept in the rooftop tent on his plot of land. He brought with him his stove and camping gear. During his time building the house, he had met many of the locals. He was a popular man, someone who was easy to talk to. He was very knowledgeable and likable. He had already made friends with the Groom Creek community, and he would have settled well into life there. On Friday, June 16, 2023, Stephen awoke in his rooftop tent. It was early morning. Before he began his day's building work, he made a cup of coffee. It was his ritual. He never did anything before having a cup of coffee. He climbed down the ladder from his tent and jumped down from his pickup truck. He fired up the camping stove and began boiling some water. It was a fine day. Sunshine filtered through the tall pine trees. The birds were singing. Barely anyone was up at that time. It was only just past 7 a.m. Stephen poured himself a cup of coffee, cupping his hands around the mug to warm up. He walked over to his outdoor table and sat down in his camping chair. He looked out over his plot of land, admiring the progress on his construction. He was oblivious to an imminent attack. The peace and tranquility of the woodland was about to turn into a scene from a horror movie. He was being stalked. A black bear, the only species found in Arizona, was on the hunt. It had smelt Stephen from far off in the trees. It moved closer, its footsteps silent on the wooded ground. Stephen didn't see it coming. It approached from behind him. He was an easy target. He had no weapon. He was sat in a vulnerable position, and his back was turned. The bear moved through the cover of the trees, out of the line of sight. It lowered its head to the ground. Its jaws were dripping with saliva. Its eyes were fixed on its prey. From less than 100 yards away it ran at Stephen, barely making a sound. A large 200-pound, 90-kilogram predator thundering on all fours towards its unsuspecting prey. Moments later, Stephen was hit at full speed from behind. His coffee went flying through the air, and he was sent crashing onto the ground. The air was knocked from his lungs. It was just past 7:30 in the morning. Only minutes earlier, he had been curled up fast asleep in his bed inside his tent. Now, he was fighting for his life. The bear jumped on top of Stephen. Its attack was fierce and rapid. Stephen tried desperately to fend the animal off. Its teeth bit into his skin. He kicked and he punched, but the power of the bear was indescribable. Then, the bear grabbed Stephen by the head and dragged him 75 feet down an embankment where the attack continued. It was trying to reach the man's neck. It was trying to subdue its prey, but Stephen wasn't giving up. He screamed out for help. Neighbors who were just emerging from their slumber heard his cries. They rushed to his property. The horror that greeted them shook them to their core. Down in the undergrowth, amongst the trees, a black bear was standing astride Stephen, biting down onto his face and torso. Stephen yelled out again and again. Onlookers yelled at the bear, throwing sticks and stones at it in an attempt to distract it. Some jumped into their cars and sounded their horns, but nothing stopped the bear from continuing its merciless attack. Two of the neighbors rushed to David Montano's house and pounded on his front door. David was in bed asleep. He heard the continual banging on his door and knew something must be up. He leapt out of bed and ran downstairs. When he opened the door, the neighbors told him to grab his rifle. A bear has Stephen. David rushed to his gun cabinet and grabbed his rifle. He ran out of the house at top speed. Up ahead, he could see a small group of people, frantic with worry, shouting and screaming into the woods. David sprinted 50 yards towards them. When he got there, he looked down the embankment at the bear. Immediately, he raised his rifle and fired at the bear. It was a clean shot. The bear rolled off Stephen and lay on the ground next to its victim. To be safe, Stephen fired into the bear again. He had been able to take control of the situation and make a clean shot due to his job working in government. He was an expert marksman. He raced down the hill to Stephen and knelt down beside him, but it was too late. Stephen was already dead. David's heroic actions had come too late, and the community lost one of their own that morning. It was desperately sad that a man whom the community had grown to love had been killed whilst building a future for himself and his partner. Officials and emergency services were called to the scene of the attack. It had shaken the tight-knit community. Black bears were rarely seen in the area. There was nothing left outside to attract them. Everyone was responsible with their trash, and they had never reported any nuisance bears before. When an autopsy was performed on the black bear, wildlife experts from the Arizona Game and Fish Department found no evidence of rabies or starvation. The bear was estimated to be between 7 and 10 years old, a male that had a healthy mixture of flora and fauna inside his gut, which suggested that there was plenty of food around for him to eat. He was of a good size and weight, and in no way undernourished. From the description of the attack, experts said that this was a predatory attack. It wasn't a case of Stephen startling an unexpected bear or threatening a female and her cubs. He had done nothing wrong, and there was very little he could have done to prevent the attack. In the case of a predatory attack, one can only fight back and hope and pray that they make it out alive. Stephen never saw the bear approaching because the bear was stalking him. He never had any time to react to the attack as he was caught completely off guard. His partner, Annie Cook, has set up a GoFundMe page to help with costs. Stephen was always the one to take care of their finances, and she has been left with hefty bills and very little financial support. Bear attacks in Arizona are incredibly rare. Even more so are predatory bear attacks. Stephen was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, leading to his unfortunate final affliction.